In this tutorial, we're going to experiment with textures that have transparency and examine how the background of these textures affect how they look when brought into Unity. Now, we know Unity accepts PSD files as textures, so let's work with that format. I'll save this texture as a PSD file in my project's assets directory, and I switch over to Unity. I apply the texture to this plane I have facing the camera, and I change my material to one that supports transparency. And now our texture is transparent in our scene view, but notice all these white outlines we see around the opaque parts of our texture. They weren't there when we saved the texture in Photoshop. If I zoom real close, you see that there's no white color right around the edges of my textures. So where does that come from? Well, when Unity imports a texture that has transparency, it automatically fills the background of the layers that have transparency with solid white. And even though there is a perfectly good alpha channel that Unity generated for us for this texture, the white color seeps in right around the edges where the opaque and the transparent parts of the texture meet. So what can we do to combat this situation? We don't want the white color seeping through, we want our texture to look crisp. And what we need to do is basically paint the background of this texture ourselves. So instead of this solid white color, we would have colors that are the same or very similar to the colors right around the edges, filling up the rest of our texture, so that even when the color would seep through it, it wouldn't look weird because it would be the same color as the colors around the edges. Artists can paint these backgrounds by hand, and that works, but it also takes time. So what can we do instead? Luckily for us, there is a free plugin available for Photoshop called Solidify that does the job perfectly. Let's switch over to Photoshop and take a look. I have the Solidify plugin installed, and with your transparent layer selected, you go to the filter menu. Under Flaming Pear, you choose one of these three solidify actions, and each one has slightly different parameters, but I usually go with Solidify B, and if I'm not happy with the result, I can try the other ones. When I hit Solidify B, after a second, all the transparent parts of my texture get filled with colors that are stretched out and interpolated from the edges where the opaque and transparent parts of the texture meet. Now the background is exactly as you want it to be, but now the problem is, because all the transparency in this layer has been filled with color, there's no transparency information left that Unity can use to generate an alpha channel from. That's easy to fix. We just have to generate the alpha channel ourselves. So right before we run our Solidify plugin, I'll just undo here. We command click on the layer thumbnail to select the opaque parts of our layer. Go to the Channels tab, create a new channel, which will be the alpha channel, and fill that in with the color white. We deselect and select our RGB channels, and back in the Layers tab, we run the Solidify plugin. So now we've got our good background along with the alpha channel that we need. So now we can save this texture into Unity. I'll save this with a different file name and switch back to Unity. It's just importing, and now when I drag and drop this texture onto my plane, you will see that all the white outlines are gone and the texture looks much better than before. The reason for that is there's still color seeping through around the edges, but now the color is exactly the same as the colors on the edges, so it doesn't look like there's any kind of specific outline, it's just what the edge color is. So the Solidify plugin did a great job of filling out the transparent areas with the correct colors, but sometimes it can introduce artifacts into the texture that can show. It didn't happen in this specific case, but if it does, I'll show you how to troubleshoot it. Going back into Photoshop, if I zoom in real close, you can see that right around the edges there are some single pixel dots that show that really shouldn't be there, and in this texture it doesn't show, which is a good thing, but if it did show, here's how you would fix it. I'll undo my Solidify action. I will create a copy of this layer beneath it by holding down the Alt key and dragging with my mouse. So now we have two of the same transparent layers. On the bottom layer I will run the Solidify action. Again, I still have the single pixel artifacts down there, but to fix it I just run a Gaussian filter on it with a very small radius of 1 or 2. 1 seems to do the job better. And now those artifacts are gone. and if you wanted, you could save this as another Photoshop texture and check out whether it looks better than the other one. But in this case, it won't really matter because there weren't that many artifacts to begin with. Now I'll show you where to get the Solidify plugin. It's being given out free by a company called Flaming Pear. And under their download section, you scroll down, and a little up from the bottom of the page is the free plugins, and you can download it for Mac or Windows. And in that free plugin pack, which when you install goes in this filter menu, there are the Solidify actions, along with a lot of other things, but Solidify is the thing you'll need to fix this background issue. So that's all for this tutorial. If you have any questions about it, feel free to email me. My email address is yilmazschemas@gmail.com, except all the vowels are taken out of Yilmaz Schemas. Thanks.